All right, so today we are diving into women's rights in Ghana.
Okay.
We've got this great piece from accra-ghana.com,
Sounds good.
and it really kind of paints a complex picture. There's
Yeah.
this push for collaboration among all these different women's rights groups,
Yeah.
which makes you wonder, what kind of challenges are they facing if they need to band together like that,
Right.
And then on the other hand, there's all these amazing milestones happening.
Right.
Ghana's first female vice president.
Huge.
Exactly. But it sounds like there's still a lot of systemic issues they're tackling.
Yeah.
Oh, and we're going to get into this really cool story about a Ghanaian journalist winning an international award, too.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic.
Yeah, so it's going to be a really interesting deep dive.
It sounds like it.
When I was reading this article, it really struck me that Ghana's story when it comes to women's rights, it's complicated. I was thinking about your expertise in gender dynamics in developing nations.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you really hit on something there when you said it's complicated.
Okay.
What's fascinating to me is this paradox the article highlights.
Okay.
On one hand, women are essential to how Ghana functions.
Yeah.
I mean, their contributions are everywhere, economically, culturally, you name it.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, that hasn't necessarily translated into equal rights and opportunities for them.
That's the paradox, right?
Exactly.
It's like they're vital but invisible at the same time.
In a way, yeah.
Okay, so that makes me wonder, what's at the root of that disconnect? The article talks about women being these major players in Ghana's development,
Right.
but then there's this persistent gap between their contributions and their actual rights.
Yeah.
So how do we even begin to understand that?
Well, it's not a simple answer.
Right.
You can't just look at the present, and you have to consider the past, too.
Okay.
For instance, traditional gender roles have a big influence.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those were solidified during colonial times,
Oh,
which restricted women's access to education, land ownership, even certain professions.
so it's like those historical forces are still having an impact today.
Absolutely. Those legacies don't just vanish overnight.
Right. It's like they become baked into the system.
Exactly. They become part of the fabric of society.
So given that context, what are some of the inequalities that women's rights groups are focused on right now?
Yeah.
The article mentions this big push for collaboration,
Mhm.
especially from a group called NetRight.
Oh, yes. The Network for Women's Rights in Ghana.
Right,
They do some fantastic work.
Yeah, and they're celebrating their 25th anniversary this year.
I did not realize that.
Yeah, which makes their call to action even more powerful, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely.
25 years of advocating for women's rights, that's a legacy.
It really is.
So why do you think collaboration is so crucial for them right now?
Well, think about the impact they've had over those 25 years.
Yeah.
It becomes clear why they're emphasizing unity now. It's not just about being unified in a symbolic way. It's about strategy.
Right.
When these groups work together,
Yeah.
pool their resources, their expertise,
Mm-hmm.
they suddenly have way more influence
Makes sense.
to impact policy and advocate for real change.
So it's like amplifying their voice, basically.
Precisely.
So then what specific changes are they pushing for? What's on their agenda?
Well, one of the most important developments is this thing called the Affirmative Action Act.
Oh, right. The article mentioned the...
It's a major piece of legislation,
Okay.
and it's aimed at tackling those very inequalities we were just discussing.
So it's designed to create equal opportunities for women.
Exactly. In education, employment, political participation.
It sounds like a really ambitious law.
It is, but it's absolutely necessary.
I can see why groups like NetRight would be focused on that. But passing a law is one thing, right? How do they ensure that it actually gets implemented and enforced effectively?
That's the key question.
Yeah, because you can have the best law in the world, but if it just sits on a shelf, it's not going to help anyone.
You're absolutely right.
So what's the next step then?
Well, this is where the ongoing work of these groups is so crucial.
Okay.
They have to hold the government accountable. They need to monitor how the act is being implemented,
Right.
and they have to keep advocating for its enforcement.
For the long game.
It really is. Passing the law is just the first step,
So it's like planting a seed.
and then you have to nurture it to make sure it grows.
Exactly.
And that takes consistent effort and vigilance.
Wow, it sounds like a lot of work.
It is, but it's incredibly important work.
Absolutely. And it sounds like NetRight is up for the challenge.
It seems that way, yeah.
So they've got the Affirmative Action Act to focus on, but what other issues are they tackling?
Well, let's talk about some of those milestones the article mentioned.
Okay.
Because those are important too.
Yeah, those wins are huge.
They are, and they
Yeah.
deserve to be celebrated.
Absolutely. We need to recognize the progress that's being made.
For sure, it's not all uphill battles.
Right, exactly. So let's talk about those wins and what they mean for women's rights in Ghana.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, it's like you can have the best plan in place, but without the right people and the right support, it just won't work.
Exactly. And it's the same with trying to change deeply ingrained social norms.
That's a great point.
I mean, passing laws is important, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But you also need that constant push to shift attitudes and behaviors.
Right, it's like a two-pronged approach.
Absolutely. You need both.
Okay, so speaking of pushing for change, the article also talks about these incredible victories this year.
Oh, yeah.
It's not all doom and gloom, right?
Definitely not.
Like Ghana electing its first female vice president?
That's massive.
Such a huge milestone.
It really is.
And then on top of that, the Ghana Bar Association.
Right.
They also elected their first female-led administration.
Wow. 2 major leadership positions in 1 year.
I know, it's incredible.
It's truly remarkable.
And it makes you think about the impact this has. Like all these young girls seeing women in these powerful roles.
It's so important for them to have those role models.
It's like it opens up a whole new world of possibilities.
It shows them what they can achieve.
Exactly.
That they can break those glass ceilings.
And it's not just happening in Ghana.
Right.
The article mentions that 12 African women won the International Women of Courage Award,
Oh, wow.
including a Ugandan journalist named Agatha Atuhaire.
I've heard of her. She's amazing.
Yeah, her work is really inspiring.
It is. And to get that kind of global recognition.
And must be so validating for her.
You know, when you think about the challenges these women face, the risks they take, the sacrifices they make,
That's incredible.
that kind of recognition on a global stage is incredibly empowering.
It's like it amplifies their voices.
Exactly. And hopefully it inspires others to join the fight.
Right, it's like a ripple effect.
And it's a reminder that even though these struggles can feel localized,
Yeah.
they're really part of a much larger global movement for equality.
It's all connected.
It really is.
And it makes me think about those we've lost in this fight.
Oh, yeah. The article mentions a few key figures.
Yeah, like Heba Suhaib Href from the Syrian Women's Network.
And Nikki Giovanni, the American poet and activist.
Right. Their absence must be deeply felt by those who knew them.
Such a profound loss.
And it reminds us that this fight for equality, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
You're absolutely right. It takes sustained effort.
And often a lot of personal sacrifice.
It does. But their legacies continue to inspire us.
Absolutely, and they pave the way for others to carry the torch forward.
Which brings us to the importance of empowering the next generation.
Yeah, the article talks about that, focusing on young girls.
It's crucial, you know?
It is. It's like we're fighting for change now,
Right.
but we're also trying to create a better future for those who come after us.
Exactly. And empowering girls isn't just about giving them access to education or opportunities.
It's more than that.
It's about cultivating a certain mindset,
Okay.
helping them believe in their own worth.
So it's about nurturing that inner strength.
And resilience.
Yeah, resilience. That's a key theme that keeps coming up.
It is. And the article highlights Patricia Blankson Akakpo.
Oh, the head of KnitRight.
Yes. Her message of resilience must resonate deeply with women facing these challenges.
I imagine it does, to keep going in the face of adversity.
It's such a powerful message.
It really is.
And, you know, resilience isn't about ignoring the pain or
Right.
pretending things are easy.
It's about acknowledging the difficulties,
Exactly.
but choosing to move forward anyway,
To keep pushing for change.
even when the odds feel stacked against you.
That's the true test of resilience.
And I think that message is so important.
It is. And it's not just for women in Ghana.
Right. It's for anyone facing adversity anywhere in the world.
We all face challenges in life.
We do, moments where we feel discouraged or defeated.
But it's that inner resilience
That ability to bounce back
that allows us to overcome those hurdles.
and achieve our goals.
It's like a muscle. The more we exercise it.
The stronger it becomes.
Exactly. And when we see that resilience in others,
Like the women in this article.
it inspires us to tap into our own strength,
And keep fighting for what we believe in.
even when it feels like an uphill battle,
And remembering that every step forward is a victory.
no matter how small.
I love that.
It's not about those grand gestures.
Or overnight revolutions.
It's about the consistent efforts, the daily acts of courage.
That ultimately lead to lasting change.
And that brings us back to the power of collaboration.
Yes, full circle.
It's not just about individual resilience,
It's about communities coming together.
sharing resources, amplifying each other's voices.
Supporting each other through those setbacks.
We're stronger together.
Absolutely, collective action can achieve what individual effort can't.
Precisely.
But before we dive deeper into that, I want to go back to Agatha Atuhaire for a second.
The Ugandan journalist.
Yes, her story really stood out to me.
It's a powerful one.
Can you tell me a little more about her work and what makes her such an inspiration?
Yeah, Agatha's story is really one of courage.
Yeah.
She's been incredibly outspoken about all the corruption and human rights abuses happening in Uganda.
Right, and that's risky.
Oh, absolutely. It hasn't come without a cost,
What kind of pushback has she faced?
Well, she's faced threats.
Oh, wow.
Intimidation, real danger.
Just for doing her job.
For speaking truth to power, basically.
It's incredible that she keeps going.
It really is. It takes a lot of bravery.
To know the risks and still speak out.
To amplify the voices of those who are being silenced.
That's what makes her so inspiring.
It really does. And it highlights the crucial role that journalists play.
Especially in places where freedom of the press is under threat.
Exactly. They're the ones holding those in power accountable.
Shining a light on the injustice.
Giving a platform to those stories that might otherwise go unheard.
It makes you realize how important it is to protect those freedoms.
They can be so fragile.
They really can be, but it's not just about journalists or activists.
Right, yeah.
We were talking about how everyday people can contribute to change, too.
Yes, even those who aren't in Ghana.
So what are some things that listeners can do to support gender equality?
Both locally and globally?
Yeah, anywhere.
That's a great question.
Because sometimes it feels like these issues are too big,
I know what you mean, like they're beyond our control.
Exactly. But you're saying even small actions can make a difference.
They absolutely can.
So where do we even start?
Well, I think it starts with educating ourselves.
Okay.
Becoming aware of the issues.
Right, doing our own research.
And then having those conversations, even when they're uncomfortable.
Oh, you mean with friends and family?
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes those are the hardest conversations to have.
They can be, but that's where real change starts.
I see what you mean.
Challenging stereotypes, calling out biases.
Shifting the narrative within our own communities.
It starts with us.
And then we can support organizations doing good work on the ground.
Absolutely, through donations, volunteering, even just spreading awareness.
There are so many amazing groups out there working tirelessly to empower women and girls.
And they need our support.
And our votes.
Yes. Supporting candidates who champion gender equality.
And holding our elected officials accountable.
That's crucial for creating systemic change.
It's about using our voices and our votes to demand better.
To push for progress, for a more just world.
So we've talked about the global picture, but how do we connect those dots to our own lives?
How do we take what we're learning about Ghana and apply it locally?
Exactly. What are the gender inequalities in our own communities?
What unique challenges do women and girls face right here in our own backyards?
And then what can we do about it?
Right. What are those small but meaningful actions we can take?
Like mentoring a young girl.
Supporting a women-owned business.
Or speaking up when we see injustice happening.
It's about recognizing that this fight isn't something that's happening over there.
It's happening everywhere.
And we all have a role to play.
Whether it's in Ghana, the US, or anywhere else.
The underlying principles are the same.
Equal rights, equal opportunities, a world free from discrimination and violence.
That's the goal.
And that's what makes this conversation so powerful.
We've delved into a specific context, learned about the situation in Ghana.
But we've also connected it to this larger global movement.
And hopefully listeners are walking away with more than just information.
A renewed sense of purpose.
And a commitment to taking action.
That's what we hope for, to spark those conversations, ignite that passion.
And empower people to make a difference.
No matter how big or small.
So before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one last thought.
Okay.
This fight for gender equality, it's a marathon.
Not a sprint.
There will be setbacks, there'll be challenges.
But there will also be victories.
Nothing small.
And it's that collective effort.
That unwavering resilience, that shared commitment to justice.
That will ultimately drive us forward.
So keep learning, keep questioning, and keep pushing for a more equitable world.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
It's been great having you, and thank you to all our listeners for joining us on this deep dive into women's rights in Ghana.
It's been an important conversation.
It really has, and we hope you've been inspired by the stories we've shared and that you'll continue to explore these issues and take action in your own life.
Until next time.
Until next time.